going on, everybody? We'll get started here in a second.
And we'll get the ball rolling again. And there's one of them. Hey, Will, what's going on?
Hello, hello. How are you doing tonight, my fine co-host?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I'm doing real good. Nothing very eventful. Just a really kind of warm fall day up here. So,
You know,
uh,
and it's gonna get warmer tomorrow where you're at. I think I saw that it was gonna be in the 80s tomorrow where you're gonna be. So
nice. Break out some shorts and a t-shirt. Oh my gosh. And Nathan, how are you?
Good. Good weather all around. Excited that show choir is back.
Yep.
yes, it has been absolutely phenomenal seeing everybody's posts on social media these past few months because we've gone from the like, hey, we're doing summer camp to hey, we're doing choreography camp to hey, our fall concerts are happening to hey, like we're doing a festival or we're competing this next month in November. And so it's been great to see that evolution. It happens every year, always hits different, always hits different. So it's been great to see people just kind of go through and kind of share where they're at, and it just brings me so much joy.
Agreed.
Same,
I
Will.
am,
Same.
yes, very excited and also excited to see the differences by state, by region, and even by school. Especially in this fall season, you see a lot of different development over time. Like you mentioned, some schools had fall shows, some didn't, and are instead focusing more on winter shows, and some schools didn't have fall shows and are focused on their competition shows. A lot of different things you could see, and it varies by school. And we're going to discuss a lot of that today.
Absolutely. And so, with that being said, welcome back to Show Choir Nation. This is episode 18. I think this is about season 1.5. We're certainly not going to be doing these weekly here in October, November, but I don't know if we're quite ready to call it season 2 yet. We still have a couple more wrinkles that we want to throw in before we formally make it season 2. But on behalf of my great co hosts, Ethan Parker and Nathan Ensley, I am William Soki. We are the trio that will be delivering you all of the latest and greatest show choir news and happenings from across the United States of America. Don't think there's anything going on in Canada right now. Across the USA around this time of year. And Ethan, straight off the bat, I'm going to toss it to you. You are a Mount Zion Swing Stations alumni. And this past Saturday, Mount Zion hosted the Illinois ACDA All-State Show Choir Experience. And you were in attendance. How was that?
It was great. It was fun. It's not often that Allstate is down south, so it was a pleasant surprise to make the short trip over to my local high school and go see some amazing performers perform. I think I've only been to two before this, and they were both they both were held by Naperville, and I think they were held at maybe Waubonsie Valley Community College. So it coming down this south was definitely a change, but fun all in the same. We saw some amazing performers. Um, I just want to give a big shout out because, of course, in Allstate, the turnaround time is insane. So, like, I believe it was 3 days, maybe 4 days was travel as well. So, kudos to the performers who had to cram all that work in. Same with the clinicians. I know the Eklunds were a big part of it, as long as all the other directors that were around that whole week. So yeah, there was a lot happening, and it was a show that I was actually really impressed with. I am a sucker for hard choreography and hard scening, and like I believe in the opener that it was a really hard scening and a really hard dancing number straight off the bat, and I kind of wasn't expecting that. Um, Same with the closer. I feel like there's a lot of energy and there's some great performers in that closer that really brought it to life. The ballad had pretty good sound. Now I know they might get some of the sheet music beforehand, which who does, like, why not? But for the first time going out as a unit, they sounded really good, and I think that their ballad could maybe compete in the mid months of a competition season, uh, straight off the bat. So really good sound. Uh, they had a really nice end note. that I really enjoyed, which it just brought the whole piece together. I thought the soloists were fantastic. Now, I don't know where everyone was from, of course, because I wish I would have grabbed a packet if there was one, or if there wasn't, of like who was from where, because it is really cool to see where everybody comes from. Now, I know you're going to have, especially in Illinois, I know the people from Mount Zion, but like if there was people from Danville, El Paso, Mantino, like sometimes like they can get lost within the huge numbers that come from the Wheatons and the Wabansis and Napervilles. But there were a lot of smaller choirs sprinkled throughout, but all the talent was the same. It was a fantastic performance. And one other little wrinkle that they threw in this year, I believe this was the debut of this year, where they did an all-state show choir combo slash band, and that was a treat to see because we saw some amazing solo acts within that number that they did. And whoever did that, props to them. I know Brian McAllister kind of led that for the All-State Show Choir combo. And of course, he's one of the best in Illinois, one of the best in the nation. So, yeah, it was a great time in Mount Zion. I, of course, wish that they could do more, but how much can you do in a 3-month span, you know? So, or three-day span,
3 days.
I think. Yes. So, yeah, it was a great show.
Awesome. We also have Nathan situated in a state where All-State Show Choir took a pretty big leap forward this year. And we do see everyone's comments in the chat saying, we just performed last Saturday. We're performing this upcoming Saturday. We're going to get there in just a little bit. For now, we're going to talk about one or two more All-States, and then we'll get to the individual choir's performance side of it. So, Nathan, Indiana All-State Show Choir started last year and was held up at Chesterton in the northwestern region of the state, went down to Noblesville, more centrally located this year. What did you see in terms of the reception for All-State Show Choir and generally how it evolved from year number 1 to year number 2 this year?
Yeah, like you said, started at Chesterton last year. This is relatively new compared to Ethan, where it sounds like Illinois All-State Show Choir has been going on for many years and kind of has become a staple in the scene. This is a very new. And it's still trying to gain a little bit of traction. It started, like you mentioned, Chesterton. They started it up last year. This year, they have done a better job gathering different groups throughout the state, getting groups from Castle in southern Indiana, or getting performers from Castle in southern Indiana, performers in central Indiana, including Brownsburg. But it's still a little bit heavily leaning toward the northern end of the state. But hopefully, as this develops, we see a more diverse group of performers all around. And some of that bias does come from it being in Noblesville, which is central, mostly located north of central Indianapolis. So we'll see how this develops. I think the perception was overall very good. They had very clean costumes. I think they did a great job of the schools that they did get interested in, or that they did tell people about. They got really great performers, and they were able to get a lot of good results from them, even in that short span. Similar to Illinois, it was only 3 days, so the ability that they were able to get everyone cohesive into a really good quality sound overall was incredible. And I liked they had a lot of unique song choices. In the second one, they did more a song that you might see in a state fair type show, which we don't really see state fair type shows in Indiana, where it's more upbeat, like country style. It feels like we don't really get that a lot around here, so it's very exciting to see that. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend in person, but we've had great videos that I've seen from the performance, and I think everyone that attended did an incredible job, and I'm excited to see how this event might develop in the future.
Awesome. Well, that's a great report from Nathan on Indiana All-State Show Choir. Wisconsin does not have an All-State Show Choir, so I'm kind of left out in the boonies a little bit for this one. But
Maybe soon.
I did also see that Mississippi All-State Show Choir went on. I believe that was at Biloxi towards the beginning of this month in October. So definitely, yeah, I haven't seen any videos or anything, but
it was massive, though. It was massive. So I did a little research on it. They had so many kids there in attendance, and the pictures were insane because I think they had 2 choirs. I think they had a middle school all-state show choir, and then a high school all-state show choir. So that's a lot of kids to wrangle up and performers to get down. And I don't know how many days they did it. I'm guessing that they're the same, or around the same of 3 days, 4 days. And I wrote down the clinicians. So some of the clinicians were Connie Mulligan, Sam Mulligan, Cameron Johnson, friend of the program, Bradley Davis. I believe he did some choreography. Sam LeVarn, Hannah Morris, and then Shauna Luckett from Pedal as a director. But especially with 2 choirs and all those kids, that's a lot of work that gets put into it. So major props to them and those students for staying focused and getting a job done. And if there's a video out there, I definitely want to see it. I bet it was an amazing show.
Absolutely. And I know there are other states as well, like South Dakota and Arizona, that do the all-state show choir in the spring season and not in the fall season. So certainly this is not the end of all-state show choir for the year or anything like that. It really is a unique concept, I think. I think other states would do well to adopt it and kind of give kids another opportunity to kind of break away, because it really is just like all-state concert choir in a sense. Just answering a quick question from the chat. None of us are from Brandon Brio. So we got 3 Midwesterners on this stream here. That pretty much wraps up our all-state show choir escapades, adventures, choose your verb, for the month of October. We do have a few non-competitive show choir festivals that have already taken place throughout the country. In the month of October, we have the Aurora Farmers Fair, which is in far southeastern Indiana, pretty close to Cincinnati. South Dearborn was the only kind of big-ish name attending that one. Lawrenceburg was also there. Missouri All-State in July. So I guess some states do it in the summer as well. Great piece of knowledge right there. So South Dearborn and Lawrenceburg were at the Aurora Farmers Fair. Up in Wisconsin, we had the Lacrosse Heritage Night. That was also towards the beginning of October. Onalaska, Holman, Sparta, West Salem, and then also the debut of the new combined lacrosse high schools group that has been tagged River City Revolution for this upcoming season. And then getting towards the back end of the month, we had the Peru State College Contemporary Choral Festival, this one in far southeastern Nebraska. Couple regular show choir names attending this one. You had Norris there. Obviously, competition winners in the past, all 3 of their choirs were there. Platteview was there. Maryville, Missouri was there. Omaha Northwest was there. Mercy was there. Council Bluffs Jefferson was there. Seaman was there. Bellevue West was there. Platte County was there. So a bunch of names at Peru State. I hope they all got great feedback on their shows at that festival there. We had the Findlay Fall Fest last week, Saturday. That one had Findlay and Van Buren out of Ohio. Also last week, Saturday, we had the Perry Show Choir Festival. That was pretty much a lot of groups who don't compete very often. I think Mentor may be the only one that competes regularly. Out of that one, we had the Strongsville Showcase. That was ETC and Strongsville. Also in Ohio last week, Saturday, and also in Ohio last week, Saturday. So I think that's 3 in Ohio last week, Saturday, was the Westlake Show Choir Festival. That one had Mayfield, North Royalton, Strongsville, and no, that's tonight. That's tonight. Oh, I read my dates wrong. Okay, so I think that might actually be happening right now. I promise we did not try to schedule over the top of anyone who's performing right now. But I guess breaking news, #breaking exclusive scoop on the pod. We have in Westlake, Ohio right now, we got Mayfield, North Royalton, Strongsville, and a few other groups who don't usually compete for the year going on stage right now. So good start to the festival season for a lot of these groups. A lot of these October events really entrenched as staples. Lacrosse Heritage Night, Peru State, Findlay, Strongsville among them. So it's been great to see groups starting to hit the stage, starting to get some early videos, early snippets of shows. But November is where we really kind of hit a little bit of the meat of the quote-unquote fall season, or whatever's left of it, because it has died down a little bit from what there was maybe 10 years ago, or per se. We have a trio of events coming up this week. Saturday, November 2nd, was supposed to be 4. Lebanon, Ohio was going to try and make their competition work on a fall date. They had tried hosting a competition in the winter for the past number of years. Didn't really have a ton of interest, so they were going to move it to fall. Unfortunately, they did not get enough interest this year either. So Lebanon is canceled, which leaves us with 2 festivals and a competition. So the first one for this weekend is Chippewa Falls. That is the Super Show, and that is up in northern Wisconsin. We have the Chippewa Falls Chi High Harmonics Holman Midwest Express Oakland Memorial Old Abe Show Choir, Medford Momentum, Fall Creek Cricket Correlation, Augusta Mixtape, and the Chippewa Falls Middle School Melodics. I'm just going to brag on this one since it's in Wisconsin and I am a cheesehead at heart. Chippewa Falls Super Show been going on for several decades. Great to see another iteration of it. Several of your staple area groups, Chippewa Falls, Oakland Memorial, Fall Creek. Nice to see Medford hopping in for the first time this year. I believe this is the first time ever they've attended the Super Show, so great to see that program on the rise as well. A much larger festival is happening in Missouri this week, Saturday. That is the Neosho Fall Show Choir Festival. That one has all three groups from Neosho, plus Carthage's two groups from Nevada, and then also appearances by East Newton, Raymore Peculiar, McDonald County, Cassville, Seneca, and a bunch of middle schools as well. Ethan or Nathan, I'll toss this one to either of you. Obviously, a handful of names we recognize, but I think the bigger story here is we have 18 show choirs gathered together on a Saturday in October.
Yeah, so I guess I'll start off. This is a massive lineup for right now. I didn't know Missouri rolled like this, especially this early. I had no clue. So this is going to be a fantastic event, and especially get underclassmen into the role of things of a big competition day. Now, do they stay the whole day? I don't know. I've never been to a fall festival of this magnitude. So, but like them to stay maybe for watch a few groups, get the lingo down, groups can settle in. And looking ahead, Missouri's gonna have a lot of eyes on it this season, I believe. I feel like this could be the year that Missouri really pops off the page. As we don't know anything for sure. You know, you hear rumors of where people might be going and all that stuff, which is the fun of the off season, of course. But from what we've been hearing is there's a bunch of Missouri show choirs who are getting into the thick of it in February and March. So this is where they get off the ground, get going. Some major choirs here. I know Troy won't be there, but still some fantastic Missouri show choirs here that will get their season started.
Yeah, and it's generally you talked about just how many groups that they're getting to this event. It looks like in the past like 3, 4 years, this has been a big event, getting over 15 high school groups out this early in the season. Definitely huge for Missouri and hopefully we see that develop into more of a national presence. These groups might continue to expand where they might compete because it really feels like they've kind of been hidden in a sense where they usually compete in just their regional circuit, but we're seeing more and more they extend out. Not a Missouri group and not at this comp, but Blue Valley from Kansas, who competes at events in Missouri, they competed at a national event and outplaced Avon. So it is definitely which is a good Indiana group. So it's definitely a scene that's worth more analysis and looking at it. And I think this might be one of the things that helps them as they move forward into the season.
Yeah, absolutely. A great analysis. I think what both of you guys said is absolutely spot on. We do have a quick question from the chat. Thoughts on ETC? I don't know if there's a video of them from Strongsville floating around, and if there is, none of the three of us have seen it, so I don't know if any of us can offer any thoughts on ETC besides it's all the same people there as last year, all the same directors, same choreographers, whatever. So I think they're locked and loaded to go for another year. The last event this upcoming weekend, November 2nd, we have the Scottsbluff Old West Choir Fest. This one's a little bit of an oddball in the show choir world because it's been going on for several decades. It always attracts 20 plus groups, but yet very few to any of these groups compete anywhere else. And that's because Scottsbluff is in the panhandle of Nebraska, which is truly the Wild West. Very few people live there. Scottsbluff at like 12,000 people is the largest city for probably 100 miles around, probably till you get to Denver. And we don't have a lineup for this one yet because usually information that's not in the main show choir circuit is a little hard to come by. But this competition has been dominated by a couple of big Colorado schools the past few years. Vista Peak Ascension went on a tear last year as well as 2 years ago. So look for them to make a return as well as their women's group Aspire. Vista Ridge Rhythm. So you got Vista Peak and Vista Ridge. Vista Ridge has also been great these past few years. Really, the standout of the Western Nebraska choirs that we think will be there will be Sydney State of Mind. That is out of Sydney, also in Western Nebraska. They have won this competition before. They routinely make the finals round. And if any group is going to upset one of the big two Colorado schools, should they both attend, it will be Sydney. A lot of great Western Nebraska show choir going on as well. All throughout the field, you've got Chadron Cardinal Singers, who are usually a perennial member of finals. You've got Garing Harmony, who usually does well. Kimball New Dimension is one of the best small school choirs that go there every year as well. Not really going to see too many of these groups perform on the quote-unquote regular show choir stage in winter. If Chase County goes, I think that is one that we may see pop up at Grand Island or Grand Island Northwest. Same would go for Dundee County Stratton. If DCS is there, I think we may see DCS once or twice during the winter. Scottsbluff has been known to occasionally go out. I think they may make a return to Vista Ridge's competition this year in Colorado, which has moved to the middle of February. So not a ton of names that we can carry over into the winter, but still 7 groups are going to walk out of there with finalist berths, and one of them is going to walk out of there with a grand champion trophy. So good luck to everybody who's going to be at Scottsbluff. Don't know if any of them are going to see this because I don't know how well we reach out into that area, but if anyone does see this, I hope you have an absolutely wonderful event. Going to a little bit more of a mainstream deal, we have the Ada Music Feast. This is kicking off our events for the weekend of November 9th. Ada back at it again with a pretty decent lineup this year. We have the Kenton Middle School as well as high school groups from Van Buren, Benjamin Logan, Crestview, Taze Valley, Kenton, Looking Valley, Medina, Strongsville, South Dearborn, Grove City, and Alliance. So those are quite the list of Ohio groups. Not sure if people outside of Ohio have maybe heard of a ton of those groups. So I think I will give the floor to Nathan here because you are geographically located the closest to Ohio out of any of the three of us right now. Grove City is probably the most recognizable name out of all of these, but after that, where do you think this competition is going to go?
Not exactly sure. I do know there is one Indiana group competing, and that is South Dearborn. So it's not completely just dominated by Ohio here. Looking back at the past, you had Pequot performing, but this year, notably, not competing. Other top groups, you had apparently looking last year, they had both their mixed group and I think that's their Univoice group placed in the top 3. And South Dearborn has competed well as well. And without Pequot in the lineup, I think you could see an Indiana group spoil the show. South Dearborn, look for them toward probably top 3 here. I'm excited to see if the Indiana representation can take this Ohio matchup.
Ethan, where else do you see opportunities for groups to shine here?
So this is actually a really good competition to begin the year. Now, I know Piqua is usually, like you said, is a great staple, and they usually come away with a victory here, and we get that little classic Grove City Piqua little matchup. But these are some very solid choirs that we see in the middle of the year, in the middle of the pack, that are fighting against each other every year. So to start off the year in November, and you get that look at them, and then you may go to another festival competition and see them again, but then you have to wait all those months to see them again and see how much they've improved and stuff. So it's almost like a little like get ahead. Like, hey, like our show's pretty good this year. We bested them once. If we keep growing, maybe we can get farther with it. And sometimes in these early competitions, you get something wacky. You get something that you would never see coming, or it's the complete opposite. It is the most straightforward thing, lineup up and down. So, I mean, I'll give you a small prediction, I guess. First prediction, I mean, not of the year because we're not in season 2 yet, but first prediction in
1.5.
a long time. I'm kind of riding with the community on this. I think I'm going Grove City. I do have some belief in Medina, but Medina kind of slipped last year. But again, brand new year. Who knows who's coming out of anywhere? So these absolutely mean nothing, my predictions. But I'm going to just put Grove City in the 1, Medina at the 2. I think South Dearborn could put up a really good fight by having them in the 3. And then Taze Valley versus Strongsville is going to be a interesting battle to take place for that 3-4, I think. So it'll be interesting to see how Ohio starts off this year / Indiana.
Nathan, you mentioned how much of a staple Piqua was at the Music Feast,
Mm-hmm.
and the 2024 Music Feast is the first non-pandemic music feast that Piqua has not been in attendance at since 2017. And the finals lineup for Music Feast that year consisted of Finlay, First Edition, Taze Valley, Prominent Rendition, South Dearborn Opening Night, Olentangy Orange Revolution, Alliance Jet Setters, Riverdale Sound Station, and River Valley Music Company. So certainly the field has evolved and changed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Ethan, I think you made a great point that we have a lot of groups who really are looking to capitalize on opportunities to kind of break free from that middle of the pack. You know, Medina, they won a competition last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think holistically, maybe when you look at the entire season, they may not have had as much success as some people may have thought, but they did win a competition last year. Strongsville Mustang Express is in a very similar situation, won a smaller competition, maybe didn't have as much success over the course of the rest of the season. We also have groups like Benjamin Logan who kind of come out there and are not popping off the page, but a little bit more solid than you think they would be, just year over year, constantly improving. You also throw Kenton in there, you know, you throw Taze in there, and all of a sudden you're like, man, you know, this kind of feels like a normal competition where you're running out of 6 finalist spots to give. I'm going to let you be the prediction man for this competition. I'm not even going to make a prediction because I would just sound stupid.
I was just
I'll
itching.
triple down.
I was itching.
I'll triple down on Grove City for the win. Grove City only bringing the mixed group this year, not bringing the women's group. So that would perhaps eliminate a Grove City 1-2, but we'll see. I think it would be a pretty big upset if anyone managed to take down Grove City. But stranger things have happened before, especially in the fall. And moving on to a state where, again, we think that it's primed for a lot of big things this year. We're going to go right back to Missouri with the Seneca Stars over Seneca. This one, the lineup, we've got 3 groups from Webb City. We've got singers as well as Dominance and Bella Voce. We have Nevada, Sensational Singers, and Treble Effects, Mount Vernon Vocal Motion, McDonald County Rhapsody and Rhythm, Hollister Blue Harmony, and the Webb City Middle School groups as well. Webb City has made a name for themselves at this competition. They are usually the winners. And Seneca does an overall top 3 for awards. So I guess, Nathan, I'll pitch to you again. Do you see anyone here who can take down Webb City, and who would your picks be for an overall top 3?
Not too familiar with this scene, but I would say we have seen Webb City do very well. They won 3 competitions last year, including this one. And obviously, I think they'll be the favorite coming in. I think one of the things we should once again emphasize is that this competition is significantly an outlier. It's 2 months before competitions return to Missouri. So it kind of just sticks out in a way. And it definitely, like you said, in the fall, we can see a lot of different things. Likely these groups aren't going to come with their full shows. They'll have probably a good chunk of their show to perform, but obviously nothing's going to be particularly polished at this point, and we could see a lot of surprises. Yeah, I think Webb City obviously would be the favorite here, but Nevada has been pretty good as of late. So I want to see if the prediction man Ethan has any predictions that counter that.
I think especially now, considering how strong I know they have been in the past, I think the only the only group that can beat Webb City is Webb City itself with its girls group going on with the overall top 3
Mhm.
scores. They are one of the stronger treble groups in the nation. Now they really dominate Missouri, from what I understand, and they're usually sit at the top of our rankings um, near the end of the year, or they sit middle of the pack. Fantastic female group out of Webb City, and I think if they come out with stronger vocals and they just have a lot of energy and their choreo sharp, I think they could take the top spot here. And I believe they've beaten Webb City, their mixed group before. Now, is that going to happen? I'm going to predict so. So I'll just go Webb City, and I'll go Webb City, and then I'll go Nevada. So that's gonna be my prediction for Seneca.
All right, we do have a couple of quick questions from the chat. But before we get there, I just want to add one more note in on here. I'm really excited that we get to see a Mount Vernon versus McDonald County battle this early in the season. It feels like those are a couple of the stalwarts in that second or third division down in Missouri behind the names that everyone knows. Mount Vernon and McDonald County are two of the most solid small school names, especially in Middle America. So I'll be interested to see who comes out on top of those two schools. We do have a couple quick questions from the chat. One of them says, what comp are you most excited for? I'll limit this question to our November competitions because I think it's impossible to pick a 2025 regular season one right now. Personally, I'm going to go with Scottsbluff just because I love how chaotic it is that we get 20-some groups that just kind of all pop out. And maybe we see a couple of them at Grand Island later in the year, and maybe we see a couple of them at Vista Ridge, and maybe a couple at Colorado States. But otherwise, that's it. Everyone just kind of disappears for another year until they show right back up at Scottsbluff. So, Ethan, I'll toss this one to you. Out of the competitions this month, favorite competition?
I love Neo Show. Just how massive this lineup is, and I know it's not a competition, but just to see the videos that might come out of it, to see how Missouri is progressing through this year that we think is going to be massive for the state. I'm so ready for show choir, and I think Missouri is going to have a big punch this year. They're the one I'm going to be keeping my eye on probably the most. Usually I try to pick a state every now and then to be like, all right, let's try to dive into this scene really hard for a season. One year it was Iowa, one year it was Nebraska. I kind of fell in love with Nebraska a little bit. I still need to learn some groups, but with Missouri this year, I think that there are some fantastic groups down there, and they're going to be able to shine.
Nathan,
And
where are you
I'll
looking?
be a contrarian a little bit. I'll pick Ada, probably because it's closer to me. Just excited to see these groups first time out. Yes, we don't have the Piqua Grove City matchup that we might hope for here in the fall, but I'm excited to see where South Dearborn places for Indiana, and I think this will be a great start of the season for Ohio in general.
All right. Good to know. We have one other question from the chat. Do you all know about Musselman High School Kaleidoscope? I believe all three of us are aware of that group. I don't think they're doing anything in November, but we are going to touch on West Virginia in just a little bit. So we finished talking about about Seneca, Stars over Seneca. And that is the last proper competition that we're going to cover for the month of November. I think that's usually it. I believe Southmont is hosting in February this year, and I think there was one, Portsmouth, I believe in Ohio, who hosted another one, but I don't believe they are hosting anymore. We do have a few more festivals to cover, so we've got one more on November 9th, and that is the Oliver Ames Bay State Show Choir Festival, and that is in the Massachusetts area. Well, not in the area, it is in Massachusetts. And so the lineup for that will be Oliver Ames Panache, Tantasqua, Applause and Encore, Leominster Ignition, Brockton Harmonics, and Boston Latin Pizzazz. So not the largest Bay State lineup I've seen by any means, but still a solid collection of groups. Oliver Ames has new directors this year, so this will be kind of a first glimpse of how OA does with that new creative team. Tantasqua, I hear they have a phenomenal show cooking up this year after their meta show choir show from last year. So don't know how much of it's going to be revealed there. And Leominster, that's a program on the rise as well. Brockton and Boston Latin, good to see them there as well. We do have a couple events the week of November 16th as well. So going right back up to Wisconsin, I hate to hog all the attention here, but it's not my fault that my state has a lot of good show choir events in the fall. We have the Washburn Show Choir Extravaganza. This one will feature the host Washburn Fire and Ice. It will also feature Ashland Lake Effect, Drum and Jack Attack, Luther L. Wright Accent, South Shore from Out of Nowhere, the Washburn Middle School Illumination, and a new group from Superior High School, which is right on the shores of Lake Superior in Wisconsin. Don't have a group name for that yet, but that is headed by Tim Delnay, who was formerly the director of Ashland Lake Effect, and also the Waseca State Street Singers from southern Minnesota. So if you're from Minnesota, you may recognize that name, Tim Delnay, as well. So he is back in northern Wisconsin, and he's got a group from Superior High School. Also, speaking of West Virginia, this is where my Musselman Kaleidoscope tie-in comes. I promise I wasn't just throwing you a spool of thread. We do have the Kanawha County School of Swing Sing on Sunday, November 17th. That will be an afternoon event. So for those of you in the West Virginia area, I believe all of the usual players will be there. So those are your groups like Capital, Herbert Hoover, Nitro, Riverside, Sissonville, all of that good stuff. Don't know exactly who's going to be there, but I would assume that it's going to be pretty much everybody in Kanawha County with a show choir. So don't know if South Charleston is going to have a group this year. I know some years they do, some years they don't. I think that would be the only other one that I would be on the lookout for there. I know that is quite the drive from where Musselman is in Inwood. I mean, it's pretty much all. I think you just have to drive through Virginia, honestly, to get there, at least to a point. So that pretty much rounds out the November events that we have. We have some other questions coming in for the chat, and we're going to save them for another time because we are actually super excited to talk about a couple of the confirmed lineups that we have for 2025. It is never too early to start talking about 2025, and I see that look in Ethan's eyes. I see that we've got a take coming, and it may not be
not this early.
no,
Not this early.
no.
No takes.
All right.
No takes.
So
I gotta feel it out. You gotta feel it out beginning of the year. You gotta let Wisconsin take the lead, and then you slowly get like, okay, I get a vibe for the season. I have no vibe. I'm so out of touch, Will. So out of touch.
all right. Well,
We'll
you're
save
about to get into
it for podcast 2.0.
Yeah.
You're about to get into
Season two.
Season 2.
As I read you these lineups, we've got a comment. Chesterton and Mount Zion lineups are heavy. I don't believe the general public knows who all is going to Mount Zion, but at least based off of my piecemealing, we've got Grenada, Loveland, Wheaton, Warrenville South, Center Grove, Brandon, Neosho, and Glenwood. And I think you can pretty surely pencil in Troy Buchanan in there because Ethan would have to tell you the last time Troy hasn't gone to Mount Zion. But even just looking at those 8 groups right there, I don't know how many are going to be bringing prep or women's groups or whatever, but there are going to be a couple of very, very, very good groups missing out on finals. So we'll save Mount Zion for another day, but we will launch right into Chesterton. This one was kind of the prima donna of the summer lineup drops. And boy, we have quite the lineup to share with you. So in case you don't know what the Chesterton lineup is, we've got Brandon Brio. So Brandon makes another appearance in this segment. We've got Carmel Ambassadors, Carroll Magic, Linn-Mar 10th Street Edition, Miller North Infinity, Mount Zion Sensations, and Wheaton North Flight. Just taking a moment to unpack. We did publish a staff piece about this too, so go on over to homeroomshowchoir.com, click the news button, and you'll get all our thoughts. Nathan, you are the Indiana guy here. I know that Chesterton is like barely Indiana. It's kind of tucked right up there on the Indiana dunes. But what was like your first few thoughts when you saw this large mixed lineup drop?
Yeah, I would say, well, first thought, comp of the year? Comp of the year question mark? I think that would be the first thought, just because of how many groups are going here. And a big thing, Linn-Mar attending basically a pseudo-national event, an event where there are groups from other regions outside of Iowa. They did not leave their state last year, and they dominated their home region. They won Show Choir Nationals in 2023. Yes. And now they're going to take on one of Indiana's best in Carmel. I'm excited to see how that goes. I'm excited to see Brandon return. They took a caption off Carmel last year, and the best choreo caption they took off them. I'm excited to see how those will be the primary 3, but overall this whole lineup is incredibly stacked this year. Excited to see everyone vacation out to the wonderful Northwest Indiana Chesterton area. Such an amazing trip venue. Not to Chesterton's amazing, but probably not as good as like Florida. But I think people will be excited for what's going on inside the auditorium. What do you think, Ethan?
Yeah, I caught a lot of heat last year from all you Indiana guys when I posted that meme that Brandon was going to Chesterton for the end of the year comp. So I just need to get out to Chesterton sometime and see what it's all about. This lineup is insane. I am actually really interested in the small mixed. There's a lot of unknowns with the small mixed.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, Bishop Lures has been around forever, staple of show choir history. Bloomington B has had its really good years. Columbus East. This is Danville, Illinois,
Yeah.
correct? Danville, Illinois had an amazing year this year since dropping down to Tier 2. Linn-Mar Instep always going to be battling, especially with Miller North, Norwell, Pike, Twins Lake. That's almost as hard as to predict as the mixed finalists. So that's going to be a battle. I just love seeing the Midwest colliding, especially with Linn-Mar coming over to Indiana, 2 states over. We're finally getting a mesh of uh, Midwest schools, which it's kind of different from, for example, the groups you kind of listed off for Mount Zion, where we have a lot of Southern influence coming in. So it's more of a national, but being a Midwesterner at heart, I just can't wait to see how this ends up.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a piece coming out probably when the season wraps up about the belt coming up. And if those who don't know, the first ever show choir competition, the fictional award was been handed down to every winner who has beaten that choir. Linn-Mar has been unbeaten for what, 3 years now? 2 years, 3 years? So they've been holding that belt for a long time. They have not been beaten. So them going to a competition of this caliber, it adds just an extra little fizzle, little sizzle on this competition to see maybe Carmel can somehow get the belt and take it back to Indiana, where it originally started. Or you never know. Or maybe go down south for the first time in a long time since Clinton had it a while back. So, and who knows where it could be going. This is an amazing lineup. I think we have some amazing styles that are mixing here. A lot of different dancing, a lot of different choreographers, and a lot of different influences. So this is going to be an amazing lineup, and I'm going to be trying my hardest to get up to Chesterton, Indiana.
I mean, I think you'd be insane not to, considering you could literally just say, "I'm an alumni," and plunk some off the mountain.
I got a dog in the fight. So thank goodness Mount Zion knows to compete. I get to see some amazing show choirs.
You do. Anyways, yeah, I think all your guys' thoughts are great. And the other thing that really stands out to me is that it's not like this competition is happening like the first weekend of January or the last weekend of March, where, yeah, there are a couple other events going on, but there's not really anything much. Like, this is the middle of February. This is the prime season for literally everybody in the country outside of California and Virginia. Like, there are plenty of other competitions that literally every single one of these groups could have attended, but instead they're all going to Chesterton. Like Brandon, they could very easily be at Tupelo, which I heard had an incredible first year as a competition last year. I really think that we're going to see a lot more groups at Tupelo this year than we did last year. Carmel could have gone to any number of competitions in Indiana, right? We know that there's never a shortage of competitions in Indiana on any given weekend. Linn-Mar, they very easily could have wound up at Urbandale. They could have wound up at Davenport Central. I'm talking about Miller North, they could have wound up somewhere in Nebraska as well. Gretna East is hosting their inaugural event on that date this year. All these Illinois groups, Mantino is just down I-57 from Chicago, could have wound up there as well. And Ethan, you touched on small mixed briefly. I think something that's going to be super interesting in this small mixed division is that we have a couple of groups that are not small groups, Linn-Mar Instep and Miller North Intensity, going and competing against small groups. So they're quote unquote prep groups. I think what their schools would consider them to be prep groups, but you don't really have a prep division a lot of times in Indiana. And so that's going to be super interesting. We also have so many heavy hitters in the single gender categories, both large and small. You know, we've got obviously Carmel Accents, you know, Linn-Mar High Style, Brandon Bella's, Mount Zion La Femme, Miller North Illumination. All of these groups that you're like, dang, I think Chesterton might have 20 or 25 finalists this year. And I know they're doing 2 venues. So I would expect to see probably at least 16 finalists. I don't know what the exact final schedule is going to be, but I would expect at least 16 finalists out of that. But it's almost like, man, like you're just trying to cram groups in everywhere. Each division, all the way down the line, there's not a single division where you're like, man, I'm kind of running out of groups. So it's just going to be a fantastic event. I think I'm going to try my hardest to get there as well, just because it's one of those things where you have to be there. Like, you had to be at Wheaton last year. You're going to have to be at Chesterton this year. You're also going to have to be at Mount Zion this year. You're also going to have to be at Glenwood this year. You're also going to have to be at Oceanside this year. You're also going to have to be at where else am I missing?
People are
Anyway,
people are traveling, and it's amazing. Getting an opportunity to see all these amazing choirs that usually never come up to at least where we are in the Midwest.
absolutely. And going from one Linmar competition to another, we also have a lineup and schedule drop for Show Choir Nationals. Not Show Choir Nationals. I don't know why I said that. I said that because there was a comment in there that just said Nationals, and my brain short-circuited. We have
Amazing competition.
we have a competition lineup and schedule drop for the Johnston Showzam. This is in Iowa in late January. Also have to be at the ACDA National Convention. Yes, if you are in Texas, you absolutely have to go to ACDA. Or if you have American Airlines frequent flyer miles, I can get you into Dallas on a cheap flight. You absolutely have to be at ACDA National Convention. John Burroughs Powerhouse, Fort Worth Southwest Effect. So many other great show choir and non-show choir groups going to be there. Throw a quick plug for ACDA's National. Johnston lineup in the 4A division, we've got Linmar, 10th Street, Waukee Northwest, EOS, Urbandale Studio, Norwalk, Sound, Adrenaline, and Dowling Catholic Dimensions. In the 3A division, we have North Polk Nexus, and we have a bunch of single gender and prep groups from these schools as well. A little bit of a smaller field, but the Johnston is definitely one of those competitions where if you sign up, you know that your feet are going to be put to the fire. So we have Linmar, Waukee Northwest, Urbandale, and also Norwalk and Dowling Catholic, who both can be sneaky good at times. Ethan, I'm going to have to ask you to make a take. What's your take?
Make a take.
Make it.
Give
I
that.
think so. I'm looking at the quote unquote the big three in my mind that are attending this competition. Walking Northwest, who is still pretty new to the scene but has been dominant so far. Urbandale, and then Linmar, and of course we just touched on Linmar and how dominant they have been the past 3 seasons, going undefeated. But my hot take is Urbandale. I love Urbandale shows. I think they do an amazing job over with studio. I have been lucky enough to see, I believe, 2 Urbandale studio shows in my time. I couldn't give you years, but they know how to perform. I don't know what it is, but something just clicks with Urbandale's performers. They really invite you in, and it's almost like I'm watching a movie. Like, people say like theater isn't show choir, but it's still not. It wasn't theater. It was like there's so much happening on stage. I was lucky enough to see their cruise ship show, which is a show everybody should go watch because the amount of hard work that they put into that with the props, and I felt like we were on the 7 seas. Like, it was a fantastic show. Urbandale could come out of the gate swinging, I believe. Now, it's kind of taken a back seat to some other major Iowa groups. Waukee Northwest always comes with amazing vocals, but I feel like Urbandale has the opportunity because I believe they are so balanced. Again, this is so far away, and what happens this year, no idea. Again, we're talking about Linmar. So I feel like if there's anyone that can do it and is kind of a surprise, it could be Urbandale.
So something that I want to just touch on, and maybe this changes your thoughts and maybe it doesn't. This will not be the debut competition for Urbandale or Waukee Northwest. So this will be Urbandale's second competition of the year. They will be at Waukee the week before. This will be competition actually number 3 for Waukee Northwest on the Sioux Falls Jefferson on the 11th, Linmar on the 18th, and Johnston on the 25th. While Linmar, this is quote unquote their competition debut, hosting the week before. But when we talk about competition, this will be number 1 of the year for Linmar. Does that change your thinking at all?
That does change my thinking. That makes it way more plausible for something amazing to happen. To see maybe Linmar get knocked down before they even get to Chesterton. Especially when your first competition of the year, you get all those new bodies in there, completely new show. You're not settled in. And especially when you get those jitters and you step out on the stage for that first time, who really knows what's going to happen? You don't know the product that you're going to put out there. You know that's probably going to be good, and you are going to try your hardest for it to be the best it can be. But, I mean, you do have to perform 2 times. and they both have to be your best shows. So Walking Northwest being comp 3, getting all those notes, that does change things a little bit, and it will be very interesting to see. And especially right now, that's a huge storyline going into this competition.
Yes. But another huge storyline is just it would be a huge upset if anyone beat Linn-Mar. They have been undefeated since 2019, and that loss was against Ankeny Centennial, who's not showing up at this competition. So, but you still have two amazing other groups in Urbandale and Waukee Northwest that definitely have the potential. It is interesting because there hasn't been many Linn-Mar Urbandale matchups. The last one was at Cedar Rapids Kennedy in 2022, where 10th Street Edition won that competition. Urbandale finished third. But before that, you have to go all the way back to 2015. So these groups don't frequently compete against each other, so it will be exciting to see them take the same stage. And I definitely think this will be one of the premier Iowa competitions next year. And like you mentioned, Linn-Mar could hand the belt over to a competitor at Chesterton. They could very well hand the belt over earlier in the season at this competition. So it'll be exciting to see. Like you mentioned, also the single gender will be very interesting. Linn-Mar's women's group also is very talented. They have won most of their competitions, I believe, in the last few years, high style. So again, it would also be a fairly big upset if anyone were to beat them. However, these would be the schools that do it, and they don't normally face off on a year-to-year basis.
Ethan, I respect what you said a lot, but I'm just going to let you know that Linn-Mar is used to going out the very first weekend of January. They almost always went to Ankeny Centennial when it was that first weekend of January. And 2 out of the past 3 years, they came away with completely clean sweeps each of those times. And the other was a split caption, and they went on to win Show Choir Nationals that year. So I'm not saying that what you're saying is wrong, but I think that Linn-Mar is certainly a group that is very, very capable of starting strong and still being right there than them. We're going to wrap this up really quickly. We have one more question from the chat. Do you all do middle school? We do occasionally, but it's really kind of a side focus for us. There are a few reasons for that. Number one, there's just a lot fewer middle school show choirs than there are high school show choirs. Number two, they generally tend to compete less, maybe 1 to 3 times a year compared to 4 to 6 for a lot of high schools. And number three, they usually tend to stay pretty local, and the divisions are pretty small, so there's not as much stuff to talk about as there is for high school. However, we do try and give middle school its love from time to time. If you stuck with us for the entire hour and you stuck with us through being rusty at this podcasting thing, it's our first time doing it since late last April, so we really appreciate you sticking with us. And it will be available on all of your favorite podcasting platforms later tonight. So check out Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts. We have an awesome slate of November events looking at us. So if you are in one of those states that has a November event, absolutely get out there. Support show choirs that are putting their stuff out on stage in fall. It'll be a great place to see where they're at and to get a glimpse of where things are going for this competition season. We will absolutely see you guys again before the competition season starts. We don't know when exactly that's going to be, but when we're ready to roll out season 2, we will absolutely let you guys know. Gentlemen, either closing thoughts from any of you tonight?
I'm very, very excited to get this started. I'm glad that we were able to get on together. Season 2 right around the corner. Who knows if we'll have a little episode before season 2, previewing season 2. But so excited for what we have going on to the site. Please check it out. We had a bunch of new writers come on that we are so excited to see their work, as long as graphics, video. There's a bunch of stuff to keep your eyes out for on Homeroom Show Choir. So thank you guys all for tuning in, and I'll give it to Nate.
Yeah, and I do want to emphasize again, if any of your local show choirs are performing at fall shows, fall competitions, maybe winter shows and not as many winter competitions, but here in the next month or two, definitely support them. and yeah, honor your groups. And if you're a performer, best of luck to those performances, those competitions, and also restate what Ethan said. We're hoping to see a lot more content here in the next month. We have added a bunch of contributors from throughout the United States. So very excited to add more specific regional coverage to different states, including South Dakota, for example. So definitely check out Homeroom Show Choir more often as we start bringing out more and more content.
With that being said, that will wrap up episode number 18 of Show Choir Nation. Thank you all for joining us tonight, and we will see you in the next episode.